Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special program here on WVUA 23. Instead of our newscast tonight, we're going to have an important conversation that, in my opinion, every one of you ought to care about because it affects every one of you. My name is Mike Royer. We appreciate you joining us today. Two special guests in the studio, the Chief of Police of the City of Tuscaloosa, Chief Brent Blankley. Chief, good to see you.
Thank you so much for having us.
District Attorney Webb, regular interviewee on our newscast, along with the Chief.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are on the same team, along with the judicial system, and we're here today to talk about juvenile crime and violence. And man, every time I turn around, we're coming to you or one of your deputies or someone with violent crimes, getting a soundbite again about this shooting, and they answer some of our questions. They can't answer them all yet because it's an investigation. Once in a while, we call you, Hayes, and go, well, what are you going to do about this crime problem? Lock them up. Right. Everyone's got an answer for the problem, but the problem continues to go. Yeah. Let's start with you, Chief. You've been Chief of Police now for 3 years, coming up on 3?
2.5 years.
About 2.5 years. You've been a police officer for almost 2 decades. Yes. Is that about right? Is the problem worse right now than it's ever been in your experience in law enforcement?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. The juvenile justice system, in my opinion, it's broken. Juveniles are committing more crimes. In the recent past, we just had one 17-year-old that was arrested for, I believe, 5 counts of attempted murder. We've had a 13-year-old arrested for capital murder. You're seeing more and more violent crimes from younger and younger people.
Once in a while, we'll come down and take pictures of someone that's been arrested, but often this past week, notes going underage, no video available, can't use photographs, and that's the law, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But they seem younger and younger and younger. When I was their age, and I'm sounding like an old man, I was trying to get a girl to go out with me or play basketball at the gym or something. We didn't have this kind of thing. What's different today, Chief?
I think the whole dynamics have changed. The culture's changed. We used to get into fist fights with people, and that was the worst thing that happened. Yeah. Now they grab guns and they pull triggers immediately. There's no fighting that goes along with it. The culture's changed. I blame a lot on the rap music industry. If you listen to the words, a lot of it's violence. That culture is glorified. Quick money, selling drugs, and doing different things. And I believe these young people, they buy into that. They don't understand that life is going to get you locked up. So I think the culture is just so much different, and also an absence of, fathers in homes. Mothers are working 2 or 3 jobs. Their kids are out running the streets. That's my opinion.
We'll talk more about that. Hayes, I've known you a while, and I know you're hard on crime, and you want to be, and that's your job as district attorney. You've been on both sides of it, though. You've defended people who are in trouble, and now prosecuting people who are in trouble. Is it the worst that you've seen?
Yes, the level of youth violence is really striking to me. I don't think there's any question. Yeah, and I think that the youth's response to law enforcement, to the system, is one of just it's disrespectful, if you will, and I think it does come from a variety of things, but it's, one of the things is, what are we as a society willing to accept? And if we have this kind of, there was a former U.S. judge, right, who wrote a book, and it was called Slouching Towards Gomorrah.
I've read it.
And it's the decrease in our standards societally. And when this becomes the expectation and the norm amongst children, that gunplay, right, is the solution, and it is, as Chief has said, glorified. And, so that's one aspect. But it would be much more difficult for it to be glorified if there were parents at home who are saying, no, this is not the path. You're not going to listen to that. And if you listen to it, you're not going to act it out. And it is continual. And what y'all see is just a fraction of what's going on. Because typically what y'all know is when somebody's actually been shot, right? What we have additionally is cars shot into, homes shot into, and it is routine, and it's the expectation. And again, why in the world do we have a community that is willing to accept those things?
Anyone who watches the newscast and sees these stories, if that doesn't concern them, then they're not paying attention, because they think, well, that doesn't affect me. Violence in our neighborhoods affects every town, community, and every person eventually.
There's no question. And when you say that, right, and one of the things, like when I ran for DA 6 years ago, one of the things I said, directly or indirectly, everybody's affected. okay? But now it's not even just that indirect, how is it affecting business? I mean, this is happening in Northport, you know, at Wendy's, it's happening at University Mall, it's happening all over the place where everybody goes, and you Hinton Park, you know, Snow Hinton Park, I mean, you just never know. Any time of day, any time of night, this could be happening.
People say to you, well, lock them up. We need to put those bad guys in prison. I don't want to see them out again. You can't lock them all up and solve the problem because there'll just be more come along.
Well, sure, and if it starts at the home, right, and it's unfortunate because we are after the fact. We strive mightily to be involved in the community, you know, beforehand, but at the end of the day, where is our real power, if you will, is to lock people up after the fact. But if you have a steady stream, right, because again, what are we as society, what are parents, you know, willing to accept from their children, then it is unending, unfortunately.
The word parents is
Yeah.
part of the problem, Chief. Too many children are being raised by other family members. You know, it's old-fashioned, but it worked for a long time. Having a mom and a dad in a home is critically important. A lot of these kids getting in trouble don't have that guidance, especially maybe male guidance at home. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. And, you know, what we see a lot of times is, you know, when we get out with different people, we're like, hey, where are your parents at? And they say, my mom's at work. And what about your dad? Well, he's not there.
Yeah.
So I think where, you know, our generation, you know, if you got in trouble at school, you're going to get your butt tore up at the house.
Yep.
That's gone. And taking them to juvenile detention, when our officers say, hey, you're going to juvenile detention, that's if juvenile detention will take them, they laugh. There's no consequences at juvenile detention. And that's why you start to see small crimes. And I've said it very publicly before. You see, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 small crimes, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, my personal belief, these kids need to be sent off sooner. They need to realize that, look, you may get sent off for 5 or 6 months now, but it's going to save you hopefully from a life of being locked up for the rest of your life. And there's just no consequences right now.
When someone first gets in trouble, a 13-year-old gets in trouble, a 13-year-old boy, I don't know what he did, doesn't matter, maybe didn't kill anybody, but certainly was a violent crime, and they're sent off. Is that it? Are they just sent off, or is law enforcement, the judicial system, the district attorney's office, are you sending them places where they're getting some counseling going, you can't act like this, or you're going to go to a real prison that you're not going to like at all? Are we trying that?
Yeah, most of Department of Youth Services, DYS, most of their facilities are, you know, they're always engaging with, teaching, counseling the children, absolutely, positively. It's not what you might have in your mind, you know, as far as kiddie prison.
Yeah.
There's not much of that at all. By and large, what you have is places that are secure facilities, but where they're being educated, you know, and, you know, with the goal that they be rehabilitated and be able to come be successful within our communities.
We're going to take a break here, and when we come back, I want to talk about, continue to talk about young people. I stayed out of trouble because of fear. I was afraid of my dad finding out I was in trouble. I was afraid of the local policeman, and we only had one in my little town. But I was afraid of those people, of disciplining me. And I'm not sure we have that fear today. We're going to talk more about that with Chief Blankley and with Hayes Webb when our program continues. Welcome back, everyone, to our special program, visiting with Tuscaloosa Chief of Police Brent Blankley and also Hayes Webb, the district attorney for Tuscaloosa. Is it the 14th district? Is that your district? Sixth district.
Sixth judicial circuit.
All of Tuscaloosa County.
Yes, sir.
Chief Blankley, you said earlier in our program that the system is broken. And I know you're not here to point fingers and say this guy doesn't do his job, that guy doesn't do his job. Overall, what really is broken?
I'll give you an example. You know, we had a juvenile that got arrested for having child porn. They called juvenile intake and they wouldn't take them. They basically got released to their parents on site at the police department. And to me, it's a risk type thing. You get arrested for having child porn, and then you don't go to juvenile detention at all. They don't take you. We have so many beds over there. In my opinion, a lot of them need to be full. But rather than taking the child and go, oh, I messed up, and you still have your day in court, but actually going into a facility, you don't have that. You have, I get to stay home with mom and dad. And to me, that's an issue, because if you get, you know, sent away, or not sent away, if you get taken to juvenile court earlier rather than just released to your parents, I think it hits home, hey, I messed up.
It's a consequence.
It's a consequence, and I don't think they have enough consequences. And we see it because we arrest juveniles over and over and over again, and they keep committing crimes. Now, to be fair, we don't see the success stories. And when I contact juvenile court, and that's what they say, you don't see the success stories. And I agree with that. I don't. But I see the many failures that happen over and over again. And I think the whole system needs to be reevaluated. And I don't have all the answers, but I think it needs a hard look.
From your perspective, if a kid gets in trouble once and never gets in trouble again and learns his lesson, they don't bring him down to the chief and go, hey, remember Tommy?
Exactly.
You don't see that.
We don't see that, but we do see the ones that get arrested
Repeat
over and over again, and there's no consequence. And then they turn 18, and then they go to prison or they go to jail, and they'll tell you, this isn't juvenile. I wish I would have been locked up in juvenile to see what my life would have been like.
I visited with someone today that in the system that I mentioned to you earlier who thinks there are people in juvenile holding that probably ought to be in prison, that we're keeping some people in prison on some pretty minor, maybe drug charges from 10 years ago, and not keeping violent people in prison. Does that ring true with you, Hayes, or is that not something we really can be clear about?
Let me start with the success stories.
Okay.
Because we have a lawyer and a staff member out there full-time
Yeah.
at juvenile court.
Yeah.
And it is good, and I'm glad the chief brought it up, because it is nice. You know, the people that we're talking about that are the real problem children, you know, the violent ones are not in any sense the majority of who's being dealt with out there. You know, we as a community can be glad of that, you know, it's not, sure, a large part of what we're dealing with respect to violent crime is juveniles, but it's still a small part of the juvenile crime overall is violent crime, okay? It's just obviously highlighted. And our lawyer out there, Shannon, is absolutely, she's so dedicated to these children. It's, you know, it makes me happy and happy to be able to brag about her and her efforts. So the success stories are vital. With respect to consequences out there, I think that the children need to believe that the consequences are swift and certain, right? And it doesn't have to be even, we talked earlier about, you know, what is kiddie prison and sending them off. Just the fact of being taken and accepted by the intake officer, right? To know that that's going to happen, right? And parent's going to have to come get me, right? They're going to know. It means something, and potentially it could mean something to parent, but it also is giving the child an indication that it means something to the system. And we've got within the city of Tuscaloosa, for instance, is a curfew law, right? And if children think that they can be out after curfew and there be no consequence because it is minimized and who cares, it's just curfew, well, guess what? You know, what do they say? The way you treat a little is the way you treat a lot. And as we are teaching, we're always teaching people as we engage with them. And if we teach them that this law, right, that exists, that is a curfew law, and that you can violate it, and you can violate it when you're already on juvenile probation, right? And there's not going to be any sort of swift and certain consequence. It doesn't have to be onerous, but it has to exist, and they have to know that. And otherwise, what you have is the natural consequence of the failure of that is what they are working with day in, day out. Every law enforcement officer who engages with juveniles on the streets will tell you that they scoff at them. And unlike what you were talking about, your fear of your single police officer, right, in the town where you grew up, here they're dealing with them at high levels, violent criminals. It boggles the mind to think 15 and 16-year-olds can be hardened criminals. And you know what? This is meaninless to them. But that's because that's what we've taught them, and it's very unfortunate.
The national media shows disrespect, shows people being disrespectful to officers all the time.
All the time.
Have you seen a worse 3 years in the past 3 years, just for
absolutely.
the reputation of 99.99% of police officers? I know that's troubling to you.
It is, and you know, the good thing is our men and women of the police department every day, they're there to do a job. You know, and you know, when you do get a thank you for doing your job, hey, it's great. You know, we deal with both sides of it, but they're to do their job, and they do awesome work every single day.
Later in the program, I want to talk to you about officers in the community. If people just see cops at the shooting, that's not always good, so we'll talk more about that in a little while. This is a tough subject to talk about, and that is most of the crimes happen in some of the same neighborhoods all the time. And it's easy for me, coming from a middle-class Midwest family, to go, I had a mom and dad at home and we didn't have much money, but we had discipline. I wouldn't take anything for that poor upbringing, but disciplined upbringing. And if you're critical of the non-family unit, you can get in trouble sometime. But you've already touched on it, Chief. That's a part of the problem.
It is, and you know, some of the most amazing things is, you know, you'll go and you'll be talking to a parent who's getting in trouble, and the child, I'm talking 11, 12, 13-year-olds, will tell their parents they can't come in their rooms. They can't search the rooms. I've been very vocal about, hey, go in your kids' rooms and, see if they got weapons, see if they got drugs. And parents are like, oh, that's their space. I have to respect that. At 13 and 14 years old, you don't have to respect anything.
No.
And I've got kids. I've got a 14-year-old. We go in a room all the time.
Yep.
But parents, they want to be friends right now instead of parents. And that's the big issue is these 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds, I've seen as young as 8 telling you can't come in my room. The parents are like, well, they say I can't come in here. It's mind-boggling, but that's the culture that it is now. I think everybody, you have a teenager, go look through the room, go look through their car. You may be surprised what you find. And the big thing is, hey, if you find a gun on them now or you find drugs and you have to have those serious talks with them, you could save your own kid's life. Because if they're headed in that direction, no 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old needs a gun. And if you find it now, we'll come talk to them. We're not going to arrest them for it. We're literally going to talk to them. Hey, this is the life you're going to go down. You could save your own child's life by investigating to see what your child is into.
If your child has a locked phone that you're paying for and you don't get to look at it, that's a problem.
It would be in my ball.
That's a big, mine would be gone.
But that's another thing.
It's-
Parents will say, hey, go through your kid's phone. And they'll tell us, I don't, they have a lock on it. And we hear it all the time.
I know.
We're like, you're paying those bills.
We're going to take a break. I've also heard people say, my child can't get in trouble because there's parental controls on there. They tell me kids can get bypass those in about 20 seconds.
They're smarter than we are.
When we come back, we've talked, I guess, mostly negative because violence is a negative subject. Coming back, we're going to be more positive, talk about what these guys can do, but maybe more importantly, what you can do, because this all affects your community as well. We'll take a break and be right back. Welcome back. We have a few minutes left with our special guest today, Police Chief Blankley and Hayes Webb, the district attorney here. Gentlemen, good to have you both with us. I mentioned earlier, I sit at home and I see crime on TV on the news. I'm here at the news station. We come cover the stories all the time and sometimes think, well, another shooting in that neighborhood. At least it didn't happen in my neighborhood. If we don't get control of this, Hayes Webb, it's going to be in my neighborhood and it's going to be in your neighborhood and out of control. We've got to do something.
And it kind of is, though. We've seen it at Stone, like I said. We've seen it at University Mall. We've seen it at Wendy's in Northport.
Yep.
It's all over. And those places, let me say, are no more special than any place else. But it is, like you said, also it's less common there, right? Mm-hmm. But it is becoming everywhere. But I really think, to me, at the end of the day, like I started with, it is what are we willing as a society to accept? And what are the expectations? And a whole lot of things are not based on laws and, hey, can you arrest them? Hey, can you lock them up? Because if the children were being properly parented at home, we would not have them out in the middle of the night shooting, and unfortunately, these who are shooting and who are being shot so routinely, right, are doing it in the middle of the night, and it's at a time when their parent ought to be exercising supervision of them. But the parents aren't, and they feel free not to, and they feel emboldened not to because there's no consequence to them.
Local, state, federal governments have spent a lot of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to solve this problem, fight crimes. I guess you could always use more officers. Do you have officers who have the time to walk the beat and walk these neighborhoods and talk to kids?
That's something that we've tried to really focus on the past year. One of the things I did was Deputy Chief Sibo Sanders.
Yep.
His whole position every day is focused on the community. We were so focused on the law enforcement side, we kind of weren't focused on the community aspect of it. And we have a lot of conversations, and we try to have any events people are having, we try and show up to, and we're trying to talk with the officers. Hey, make sure your windows are down. We drive through neighborhoods, get out and talk to people, and they're doing a lot better job at that. With the new pay scale, we're slowly recruiting more officers, so that's helping us out a whole lot. We want to get in the neighborhoods as much as possible. We still have to make call volumes and do other things.
I know you have a lot of value in Deputy Chief Sibo Sanders. You'd like to have a dozen more just like him.
There's only one Sibo. So.
Is the department as diverse as our community? Kind of breaks out about the same?
It's not. That's something that we strive for every day. We pay for different minority recruiting apps and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things that, we've probably got 15 openings right now. We recruit as heavily as we can, but I think we're probably 70% Caucasian. If I had to guess right now, we'd love a more diverse police department, but we have to have applicants.
How great would it be if some 14-year-old black kid sitting out there goes, could I be a cop? And you would say, you bet you can, right?
We have a lot of interaction with youth, and that's why we go to the elementary schools all over the city.
And tell them how they can do that.
And tell them how to do that, and get them excited about maybe doing this one day. We don't care. Male, female, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, whatever you want to say. We're all blue. That's the thing. We're all a big family. We love each other. We look out for each other on the streets. But we would love our department to be even more diverse than it is. But we've come a long way, I'd say, in the past 3 years.
It's not a police problem. It's not or a role, and it's not a DA's role. But I wish there was a way for people to understand the value of family. And I guess this is the third time I've mentioned it here, Hayes. I wish we could teach kids in school. We're not going to keep them from having sex till they're married and 25 years old. But if we could just teach them at school not how to have sex, but how to have family and how to have respect for each other going forward.
Well, just before I came over here, I was actually at Collins Riverside, and by invitation of a man named Kevin Shobe, and he is heavily engaged in that community in Northport, particularly in the housing authority areas, and he's got a child or children of his own, but he is very, very interested in stepping out and trying to, he obviously can't be father to everyone.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is discipline, integrity, honor, and going back to how is law enforcement viewed within the community? There's no question in certain communities to see a police officer, and he's told me he's been over at Collins Riverside, and there's a police officer came checking on the doors, and the kids started hiding under desks because they were so terrified of the police. Well, they've never had any negative experiences with law enforcement. That's what they're being taught, right? And again, that comes back to the households. And so Kevin, and it's great, he is trying to form a group of people, fathers, particularly males, to be positive role models out there. And you've asked, what can people do? And it's to be invested in our community and to be concerned about things like old-fashioned things, if you will, right? Integrity, discipline, right? Civics, those sorts of things. And I admire him, and he spent the day out there cooking for the children, and encouraging others to be out there and serve as good role models.
What a great example for the rest of us. Get involved. Don't just complain about
great.
this.
That's exactly right.
Here's how old-fashioned I am. You're a Marine and always will be. You have any military background,
No,
Chief?
sir.
It's okay. I don't either. I was in the Air Force. Hayes doesn't think that counts. But I would love to see young men, when they graduate from high school, go to the military for 2 years. Not force them, not whip them into shape to go to the military, but that's just, some countries do it.
Right.
Go get that military training, and you might be a military career guy or come out and be a police officer, but that age where they're not sure what they want to do, give them some choices.
Well, I think there's civics, right? And what you're talking about there is civic responsibility, and a focus on civic responsibility and what's my role here. I think you go back to John F. Kennedy. Remember, it was like, ask not what your country can do for you, but for what you can do, what you can do for your country. And it's kind of that same mindset. What can I give? How can I be an upstanding, positive role model and citizen here?
Chief, let's invite viewers to contact your department. You've got folks that will take their call. You'll eventually get back in touch with folks. What would you like to hear from people? I know you want to hear about problems in their community before violence happens.
We do. And even if somebody doesn't want to give their name, you can call Crime Stoppers at 752-STOP. If you have a narcotics problem, you can call them. We just want the community to get involved with us. And, I think conversations like today start that with juveniles. But anything, the community needs, please call us. We'll come talk to your kid. We'll come talk to you. We do a lot of home visits every week that people don't know about. So we just, we like to get to know the community and do everything we can for them.
A few seconds left. Let's make the point, Hayes, that finger pointing does no good. There's no bad people in the system going, I don't want to help. I want to not do my job.
No.
We got to work together.
Law enforcement, our office, the courts, everybody's working hard. Everybody has, the same desired goal that we have the best and safest community we can have. And so that's very positive.
I've enjoyed talking to both of you. Hayes, it's always good to see you.
Yes,
Chief,
sir.
I'm going to practice your name over and over and over until I get it right.
You, sir. I've been called way worse.
No. I want to call you by the right name. I just stumbled with that one for some reason.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for what you do. Be safe out there, and good luck with your departments as you continue to fight these issues. Thanks for watching our program. My name is Mike Royer. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time on another special program just like this.